Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of What's Your Game Again? I'm Jesse Miller.
And I'm Jonathan Walter.
Today we're going to look at games that are super familiar, ones that you've probably played 100 times. And we're not looking at that game, we're looking at other games that are kind of like that. So if you've played this, you might like that. That's kind of the idea. So like if you listen to this type of music, you might like that. If you read that kind of book, you might like this one. Well, today we're doing that with games. If you've played this game, you might like this game. So that's what we're going to do today.
The first game we're going to talk about is a fan favorite, Yahtzee.
Been around forever.
Yes. Very basic game. You shake the dice and you're trying to make combinations, 3 of a kind, 2 of a kind, one of each die type. So there's lots of games that are comparable to this. One of them.
Yeah, I was just saying it's the kind of game that I played with like my grandparents. Like every time I'm with my wife's older aunt and uncle, we played this for like a couple days when we were visiting them. So Yahtzee is a classic game, and we think it's probably time to upgrade your collection beyond Yahtzee. So yeah.
So the first game that's like Yahtzee is the King of Tokyo. Yeah. So the King of Tokyo is you have the monsters in Tokyo or outside of Tokyo. Everyone outside of Tokyo is attacking, and what makes it similar is you're rolling the dice, and depending on whatever combination you get, that depends on the what you can do. You can attack, you can regain life, or you can gain victory points.
Yeah, one unique thing about this too, you also can get like charge points. Basically, you can roll this little lightning bolt, and then you collect these little charge cubes to get cards that have special abilities. So you're rolling the dice Yahtzee style, best out of 3, basically whatever you want to keep, you choose to keep, and then you do those effects, but then you also get those cards. So you're trying to get rid of everybody else's health, or you're trying to get the most amount of points so that you can win by getting victory points or win by destroying everybody else. And every time the game is very different. I know, playing Yahtzee for 2 days straight with my wife's aunt and uncle, it's the same game every time. Playing King of Tokyo is completely different. The game kind of like that idea with the dice, with the Yahtzee dice, is Bang the Dice game. We've talked about this before. This is a great party game where you're rolling 5 different dice and you are choosing to either keep or roll again up to 3 times. And everybody has a character. There's a sheriff, there's renegades, there's outlaws, there's a deputy, and the sheriff is trying to kill all the outlaws. The renegades are trying to kill everybody. The deputies are just trying to protect the sheriff. It's a fun game, and each of the dice do different things. So like the Gatling gun, or just straight bullets to shoot people. You roll little mugs of beer to get life back. Dynamite, if you roll 3 of those, it blows up in your face and hurts you. The arrows make the Indians attack, and so if you collect enough arrows and somebody uses the last of the arrows, then everybody with an arrow gets deducted.
You lose that much life.
So fun party game for pretty large groups. I think you can play 8 people or up to 8 people with this game. It's a lot of fun.
Another game is Dice Throne. This one's the Marvel edition, so you get to choose which hero or villain you want to play as, and you're doing the same thing. You're rolling the die, and depending on what combination you get, determines what abilities you can use. You can attack or upgrade or defend. And there's multiple other versions of this. I think they go different seasons even.
Yeah, there's the original Dice Thrones, which is not Marvel, with different characters, and each character is a little bit different. But then there's now the Marvel Dice Thrones, and I know that there's a Black Panther. There's a couple other Marvel characters in the Marvel universe. So if you're into that theme and you kind of like the rolling the dice, that's cool. And each character has unique dice and unique abilities. So it's not like, you play these 4 characters, the rest are all the same. No, each one's different with different abilities. And it's, from what we've played, it's pretty balanced. Thor is more advanced to use him, but it's pretty balanced.
And they try to keep with the character.
Yeah.
Like Spider-Man has web abilities. Yeah. Loki has like mind tricks. So
yeah, it's pretty cool. Pretty fun game. So Yahtzee with a Marvel theme. And
who doesn't like Marvel or comics?
Yeah, that's fun.
Superhero.
Another one to fit the Yahtzee theme in my mind is Azul. Now, it's not Yahtzee because you're rolling dice. It's Yahtzee because you have a grid of where you're choosing what to select to fill your grid in. And you're actually not using numbers like in Yahtzee, ones, sixes. You're using these different tile. So the way it works is you have a kind of a pool of tiles with one different, like little plates. I forget what they're actually called, and you go around and you select which one you want to take, and they're completely random. So it could have three of a kind, it could have all different ones, and you're trying to like fill in the grid to get the most amount of points, and you're also trying to see what other people need on their grid through each round and kind of block them. Like if you know they need this kind of grid, or this kind of tile, the red one or this blue one here, then you're kind of going to want to pay attention to that too. You don't really want to give them things that are going to give them the most amount of points. So it's very abstract, super abstract game, just kind of filling it in. So that's the Yahtzee without dice. Instead, you're using these random tiles that kind of come out and placing them each turn. So yeah. Next on the list, I'll go with if you've played tic-tac-toe, which who hasn't played tic-tac-toe? Let's upgrade that. So go from the paper or the napkin at the restaurant or paper at home to an actual board game, a box. And this is great with my kids. This is Santorini. Santorini, it's tic-tac-toe because you're trying to like outmaneuver the other person. You can play 4 players, but I suggest 2 players. It just works way better that way. And one person is, you're both trying to build up little buildings and get to the top before somebody puts a cap on it. So if you build up a building to the 3rd level and you're able to get your guy to jump up there, if you can get him up first, then you win. If you can block the other person, then you keep going until you fill in this grid. It's actually a really beautiful game.
Mm-hmm.
There is variety to it. They have a bunch of different characters with character abilities. I've never played that with my kids because honestly, the game is something that's strategic enough and kind of random enough that the character abilities just really haven't come into effect for us. So you and I played it a couple times together.
Yeah, we played it, and it's a quick game.
Yeah.
Like you could play multiple games, like within a half hour to an hour, however you want to play. It's not a game I would play for hours on end.
No.
But like if you just want to quick pick up a game, just kill some time. It's good for that.
Yeah, when my 10-year-old wants to play a game and I don't want to spend 2 hours of my night playing a game or even an hour, I'll say, hey, let's play Santorini because she likes it, I like it, and usually we can be done within a half hour. We played 3 or 4 rounds. Usually we do the best out of 3, best out of 5. So yeah, good.
Another game that's people know is Ticket to Ride. So in this game, you're connecting locations across the map. There's different versions of this. This one is the United States, and I think you could do Europe.
There's Europe, and there's a more kid-friendly one. But honestly, this one, even my 6-year-old, she's got it figured out already now. So it's a pretty family-friendly game that's been around for a while.
Yeah.
So.
And the game that I think is a lot like it is Brass Birmingham. It's set in the Industrial Revolution. It's a complex game, and you're trying to connect different points. Called it your network, and you could use other people's networks to build things. You're building buildings and transporting goods and all that other stuff. But yeah, it's a lot like Ticket to Ride because you're connecting. There's like 2 different phases. You start with canals, and then it upgrades to railroads. So I just thought it was pretty
Connection's pretty similar. It's a way more advanced Ticket to Ride. I think Ticket to Ride is a way more board gamey, advanced version of Candyland. Because Candyland, you pick up a colored card and you go to the certain place. And Ticket to Ride is essentially you pick up colored train cards and then you can play the trains. So if you play Candyland, maybe it's time for you to go to Ticket to Ride. If you play Ticket to Ride, maybe it's time for you to go to Birmingham. Just kind of keep advancing your family throughout the ages there a little bit. So another game that I grew up on, a child of the 80s and 90s, is Tetris. If you've ever played Tetris, you're kind of like, you got a grid, you got your box, you're trying to fill in the little spaces. And this game, I think, is the board game version of Tetris, kind of, and it's called Tiny Towns. Tiny Towns, you have a grid, everybody has a grid, and you are collecting different resources. So I think there's like gold and brick and stone and glass is the other one, and you have different buildings that have little pieces for the different types of buildings that you have, and you are kind of filling in the grid with the different elements, so your glass, your brick, and your wood, and they make up a type of building. And then for you get extra bonus points when you complete that little grid, and then they all shrink down into one space. So if you have, you know, a glass, then a brick, then a wood, and then a wood, and let's say that makes a church, all that would shrink down in one of those spaces. You put your church, and the goal is to keep filling in spaces, and so expanding your elements, shrinking it down to one building, collecting the points at the end of the game for that building, and doing as many as you can in a small amount of space. And the game ends when nobody has any more space to build. It's a little abstract, it's a little bit strategic, it's actually way more difficult than you would think. I've seen my wife and my oldest daughter get really frustrated at this game because they're trying to build something to get bigger points, and they just can't seem to get those cards or can't seem to fit it in the way they want to. So pretty abstract, but yet it's kind of advanced Tetris a little bit in a board game form. So, last game I think that we have is if you've played Battleship as a kid, going back to the 80s and 90s, sitting across from somebody playing Battleship. Whitechapel is the closest thing that I can think of. Which you have, what's that game that you have that's kind of like Whitechapel? I can't think of the name of it right now. Where you're looking for somebody in Whitechapel. Specter Ops, that's it. So Specter Ops, Whitechapel, they're a little bit different, but in Whitechapel, somebody has a screen and they are mapping out their moves each turn. Each time they take a different move with Jack the Ripper because he's made his kills throughout the night, and everybody else is the detective trying to find Jack the Ripper. They're asking questions, they're searching for clues, they're moving their meeples. So that's the Battleship aspect. You don't know where that person is. It's a hidden movement game. So Jack the Ripper's moving throughout the district of Whitechapel, and you have 4 nights to find him, hoping to stop him making his kills every night. And in Specter Ops, it's kind of like that.
Yeah, you have your plot of the board, and then you have to move and keep track of where you're moving as you go.
Yeah, and aren't you it's spies or something like that? Or
there's an agent, and then everyone is working for, I can't remember what organization it is, but they're all trying to find the mole or agent or whatever.
And he has like a car that he can move around in.
That's
the other team.
Yeah,
they have a car that they can choose to move around.
And they all have different abilities. Like one person actually has, like, I believe, sonar, and he could detect if you're on one corner of the map, or depending on where he is.
That's where I think Specter Ops is a little bit better than Whitechapel, because if you're playing 4 or 5 players and everybody's a detective, they don't really have any abilities. They're just kind of moving where they think they can, and they should be having teamwork, and you can kind of get like the alpha gamer mentality where one person's telling everybody else what to do. In Specter Ops, it's a little less of that because they have abilities that they can use.
And if there's 5 players, I believe it is, then one person can get turned to be on the side of the single player. So
kind of a betrayer of sorts.
So they can deceive everybody else, which is kind of fun. I think that happened once, and that person had the sonar. So it was like, oh, he's not over here. But they were. I think I was the person. So
you're always the betrayer.
No, I wasn't the betrayer. I was the other guy.
So that's our list right now of if you think you like this, you might like that, and we hope it helps you figure out what game you would like. That's why we're always asking, what's your game again? Because we think that you have one, and we'd love to help you find it. So thanks for watching, and until next time.